the question I've been asked is, how did I find my passion for life? How do I find my voice and one find our voice? And how do you go about this thing called living in your passion? Am I getting that right? Yes. So it's very interesting for me to start with this because I have just finally figured out the title of my book, my life book that I want to write. And in that, because I've done so many different passionate things, I couldn't decide, well, what's my theme? I've done everything from work in prisons to starting not-for-profits to doing for-profit, producing of television, and now working with Fran Drescher in the health field. So what's the theme? And how come I keep on starting all these things that, yes, do change the world? And what I realized is that after I tried to get a corporate sponsor with us, who told me no 3 times, I said, you know what? No's not an option. So the name of my book that I plan on writing is No is Not an Option, Getting What You Need When the World Needs What You Got, Stories of a Startup Girl. And I am a startup girl. I do believe, however, that some of us are honestly wired if you listen deeply enough, to know what your passion is and what speaks to you. So I have been blessed with throwing myself in the universe and asking, where am I supposed to be next? And if I really listen, and I do believe this is capable of anybody, if you really do listen, you could find out, and you will kind of be guided as to what your passion is. And it's a skill set to stop all the I could have, I would have, I should have, I'm trained to do this or that, and really take a look around. And one of the things that I do well in my life is take a look around and listen. And when you listen really deeply, I always find something drops in your hand and you're guided. I have a lot of examples about this, but that's what I've done. You know, it's hard because we do have to make a living, and we all sign into jobs that sometimes don't turn us on and aren't the things we want to be doing. But there's something about really being moved. And I do believe that when you hear a great song, or when you see something, or when something's wrong and you feel it, there's a deeper listening that you get, and everybody gets it. You know when you connect, and you know when you're in disconnect. And so I encourage everyone, especially young women, to just stop beating up on yourself, stop criticizing yourself, oh, I don't know, and open it up to listen. I remember once when I read The Color Purple, and there was one line that said, I think God gets pissed off if you walk past a field and don't take notice of the color purple. Take notice of the color purple. Take notice of everything. And you know, I grew up in a white community, and I was bused into a private school on Long Island. And I'll never forget going through a very poor black neighborhood and seeing garbage on front lawns and old broken down buses and broken mattresses. And as I was bused from one community to another, I was looking out the window, and I remember, I must have been 12 years old, but I remember saying, not on my watch, not on my watch. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know it would lead me to working with kids and diversity and prison work, but I knew I was looking, I was feeling, and I was giving a form to feeling. And that is what I've done as a theme, I think, in the work I've done, is how do you give a form, how do you create something that's meaningful from what you're feeling, because it really starts with what moves you. So my story goes back, I'll even go back before exec producing for television, and why media became so important to me. I still to this day consider myself a youth worker. That's what I am. I love hanging out with young people. I am ageless with young people, and I learned so much. So I started my career, I was in Ohio University, and I started a community clay center in Appalachia. And the kids would, I'd make this beautiful thing, and I would come back and the windows would be busted in. And I would come back again and they'd be busted in. And I'll never forget, I was 20 years old, I said, here's the key. I'll see you on Tuesday and Thursday. And when I left and came back, the place was completely cleaned up. So what did I learn? When you go and do community work, when you give up your power, what you think, and you give it and share with the community, they own it. And I was really young to learn that, and it is a benchmark of everything I believe and everything I think about. So one story was that when I came back to NYU, graduated in education, did a master's degree in educational theater, I read one line in a book that again changed my life. And it was a book on drama and using drama to educate. And Brian Way said, you can say, what is a blind person? And you could say it's a person who cannot see. But alternatively, you could say, close your eyes and try to find your way out of this room. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to teach life. That's what I want to do. I want to do close your eyes and find your way out of this room. And again, it goes back to when you're feeling something. So when you say, what does my audience or young women want to do? We want to stop, get off our criticism, feel what we want to participate in, and then go give the form to feeling. So leading this, I founded the City Kids Foundation in 1985. Oh, I'm dating myself. And the reason was because I got tired of doing races and workshops in Harlem, but not in Scarsdale. And where was Chinatown? And when you bring people together of such diverse backgrounds and you level the playing field and create a safe space, the tide rises. I had read once, if you think of your brain as feathers and they're piled, if a wind comes, it blows up, but it resettles in a new way of seeing. So when you bring diverse people together to sit and experience, again, feel, the tide changes. And that's what, you know, oh God, 28 years later, City Kids is going great. City Kids spawn out the Posse Foundation, gave birth to Impact in Harlem, gave birth to another company called Global Kids, but always the theme of young people leading the way, learning, listening, creating an alternative family, and that's what moved me deeply. So one day, this is my segue to why exec produce television. So if you spend 10, 15 years in a basement, sitting on the floor, listening to young people, running workshops, everything from your parents to education to sexual orientation, how did I take the authenticity there and blow it out through media? And could I take the preciousness of that? So I received a Rockefeller Fellowship. And I sat down, I said, hi, I'm Laurie Meadoff, and this is the first time I've sat down in 18 years. I had never been with a peer group. I'd only been with young people who are my board of directors. And that whole studying and next generation leadership changed my life in a very, very big way. I was in South Africa and I showed my little City Kid tape to this man, Hunter Siebert, and he showed me a clip that had a TV set in Soweto at night, and I was talking to some kids in Philadelphia saying, what kind of dances you do? Can you show me? And they were doing the Margarina, and I was like, oh, you could do two-way television? You could take that authenticity of a basement and make it mass? Well, I optioned the property, ran home, called it Chat the Planet, and literally said, I have the Holy Grail. Ran out to Hollywood and people said, Americans are really not interested in anything international. And then about a year later, the World Trade Center fell down, and I wish, fell down, I wish it came down. And I did have the Holy Grail, so we started producing two-way dialogues, half-hour TV shows, 350 million people it reached. And had South Africans talking to Americans, Jordanians, Australia. Went to Baghdad with a group a week before the initial war, a week after, and then created short forms that I'll tell you about. But if you look at all these crazy stories, what's the theme again, and where does it link into your passion? It's about not being frightened, assessing what's needed, what your passion is, and not being afraid to create and make it happen. Not hear no, just no is not an option when it's supposed to be, when you're supposed to know what's right. And I think that's what's guided me. It's hard to keep on your right path for your purpose and your passion. And it's always a checks and balances. I've done not-for-profits and for-profits. You know, in not-for-profits you give your time. In for-profits, time is money. Very weird concept for me, because if a city kid calls, I'm like, I could be on the phone with the president, I go, I gotta go. You know, it's Hassan, I have to stop, and it's my family. So it is always, I've had situations in my past where a kid confessed that they had killed someone and they had never told anybody. What do you do with that? What do you do? How do you help? How do you not feel burnt out? And I have been burnt out. But always you go to your family, loved ones, connections, you take a breath, you try to stop, you try to get support, and you have to, you know, there's a thing called emotional literacy. We're always so literate, and we're all so, you know, we could be investment bankers or this or that, but how do you learn how to be literate and articulate with what you're feeling? Even if it's like, I don't know what to do. I am so down and out and discouraged. And when you claim it, someone can also help you say, well, why don't we do this? Or let me help you. So I haven't known, and I've been beat up beyond comprehension in my own heart and life, but you just keep one foot in front of another. I mean, Fran Drescher, who I'll get into talking about, she's a cancer survivor, and she's at the height of her career with uterine cancer, and she says, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And there's really a truth in make lemonade. You know, we're not stuck. We're stuck because we choose to stop and be stuck. Any young person, any empowered young woman can really take a risk and get into their passion and get excited and build whatever it is. I'm here at the living truth to tell you.